Well, we're studying the eschatology. Eschatology. What is eschatology?
End time.
End time. The end times. All right. Now it's going to be a whole lot different from what all. There's a lot of stuff going on in end time theology, philosophy right now that just absolutely doesn't go according to the Bible. When the Bible talks about end times, I'm going to tell you something, people. It's not getting better. Not getting better. It's going in a spiral. There's a law of thermodynamics. What does that law mean?
Heat rises.
The law of thermodynamics.
Heat rises?
Well, that means things play out and they spiral downward. Things don't get better. Mankind is not going to get better. I said last week that the Southern Baptist Convention in early 1900, they said, give us $3 million and we will bring in the millennium.
How are they going to do that?
They're going to evangelize everybody, and the word will go to the end of the earth, and everybody will be saved, and the Lord will come back. And we will be in the millennium. But they overlooked this period of time right here. What does it say here? Tribulation. We studied the book of Daniel so far. Now we kind of hit that one high and fast, and we did Isaiah the same way. But what I want to do is give you an idea, and we're going to go into Joel, and we're going to go into Amos, and the other books of eschatology. We're going to study all these. Try to study them with not over 2 weeks in each book. And we're going to go to the book of Revelation every time. And then we're going to get into the New Testament, and we're going to go through all the 4 Gospels and the church letters. And then what's the last book? Revelation again. We're going to go through Revelation. We're going to spend probably a week per chapter in that book of Revelation when we get there. I've taught it a lot of times, but people seem to be always interested in the book of Revelation. All right? Let's go to the book of Ezekiel right now. I just want you to go there. And I'm going to read Squires Odiotis. He wrote a little preface to this one. And I'm going to read this to you, just verbatim. Ezekiel went into Babylon in the second deparation. That's about 597 BC, or around in the 6th century before Christ. 4 years later, he began a prophetic career that was to last more than 20 years, all of it in Babylon. He had the helpful habit of dating many of his prophecies, and most of the message about contemporary events were delivered before the fall of Jerusalem in 586 BC. Okay? The New Jerusalem section in chapters 40 through 48, and look over here now. See what this is? What's it say here? The dispersion and then the regathering of Israel is in what book? Ezekiel. That's the book we're studying now, okay? It's talking about prophecy in the end times. There's a lot of prophecy in here. The book of Isaiah, remember, told more about the millennium and heaven than any other book. Also, eschatology and the coming of the Messiah. New Jerusalem sections in chapters 40 through 48 held out a hope for the restoration of the land of the temple after the exile. Of all the prophets, Ezekiel was probably the most colorful. He used pantomime, or actually he acted out his prophecies. He would do different things to act it out, pantomime. He would cry and wail and slap his thighs. He ate a scroll. What book does that remind you of? Who else ate a scroll or a book? John. Okay, in the book of Revelation. And did many other unusual things to burn his messages into the minds of the people that he was addressing. Some of his visions are unusually arresting in their graphic details. From Ezekiel, we get a picture of a holy, transcendent God whose name and glory must be protected. By contrast, Judah had sunk to the depths of depravity and national apostasy. God had to punish his people because of his hatred of idolatry. He never ceased to love them, but he punished them. Not only was Judah's sin a national one, but Ezekiel stressed individual responsibility for one's sins to an extent unparalleled in the rest of the Old Testament. Ezekiel forms the important background for many passages in the New Testament, but this is perhaps true more of Revelation than any other book. Material from most of Ezekiel's chapters is quoted and alluded to in all but one chapter in the book of Revelation. So we have a book here that is greatly related to Revelation. Now let's go to Revelation. All right, Revelation 13. Revelation, the 13th chapter. We're talking about the false Christ, and we're going to be talking about the bride of the Antichrist. The false Christ and the bride of the Antichrist. All right? We're going to talk about the economy of the end times, because the Bible has a lot to say about the economy of the end times. Have you felt any of that yet?
Oh, yeah.
Just a little bit? All right. Revelation, 13th chapter, verse 15. Who wants to read that? Anybody there? Sister Andino, are you there? 13 and verse 15. Revelation 13 and verse 15. You got it, Anna? Read that real loud for
He
me.
was then permitted to give life to the statue so that it could speak. Then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die.
All right. Somebody, now here is a real problem. You know what? We may already have the mark of the beast. Did you know that? We're going to study about that this week. We already may have the mark of the beast. We already may have the mark of the beast. We already may have the mark of the beast today. Already. Okay? Let's read that one more time, Anna.
He was then permitted to give life to the statue so that it could speak. Then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die.
All right, now here's the real story. You worship this beast. If you don't worship the beast, you're going to die. If you do worship the beast, you're going to be eternally dead in the lake of fire. Okay? Number 16, Sister Andino, did you find your way there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on the right hand or on their forehead.
All right. On their right hand, they're going to receive a mark on the right hand and on the forehead. Okay? Now, let's look and see what happens here. Are you over there, Joanne? You're not.
No,
Bill, Wild Willow, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, number 17. Yeah.
And no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name.
All right. And then number 18, Brother Floyd, are you there?
Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of man, and his number is 666.
All right, 666. 666. All right, 666. This is the number. That's the number of the Antichrist. What does that mean?
That's the number of my J.C. Penney credit card.
That's man.
Man. Thank you, Anna. By the way, how many of you have a Social Security card? Does anybody here not have one? You know, for the last 50 years, there have been people that have hid out that won't take the Social Security number. There have been. They won't take it. Now, let me tell you, to get a driver's license, you got to have what? Social Security number. To get a job, you got to have what? Social Security number. To have a bank account, you got to have what? Social Security number. To have a checking account, you got to have what? Social Security number. To get a job, you got to have what? Social Security number. To go into a grocery store and buy anything with a checking account, you got to have what? Social Security number. If you get a hunting license, you got to have what? Social Security number. If you get a driver's license, what do you got to have? Social Security card. Social Security number. You get a fishing license, you got to have a Social Security number. Just think about that. You got to have a bank account. You got to have a Social Security. Well, Brother Floyd.
You got to have a Social Security number to buy pink diesel fuel.
That's right.
That's a diesel fuel with no state tax on it.
Yeah.
They won't sell it to you unless you give them your
Social
Social Security.
Security card. That's right. All Social Security card.
Question.
Could that be the wow, now every country in the world have these citizens. In your Social Security number you have the year you were born, basically the place of birth,
Your parents.
and your citizen number. What?
Your parents.
And your parents. The whole thing is on your Social Security number. Did you know that? And with GPS tracking and stuff that you have today. How many of you ever had an operation? If you're ever going to see a doctor, you've got to have a Social Security number. If you're going to have any medical help, you're going to have a Social Security number. Mr. Bush, a few years ago, signed a brand new bill in, the prescription bill. You are charged, I think it is, it's either 34 cents or 43 cents a day from that time on for your medical, whether you have it or not. You're charged that money. When you die, or when you go in the hospital, you're going to have to pay that bill before you get any medicine. That's fact. There's no way out. There's no option out of it. I fought them here a while back because I'm losing money. Every month I'm losing money. They don't pay for my prescriptions, but I have to have this deal. And I said, I don't want it. Well, they said, don't pay for it then. But when you go in the hospital, but when you die, you have Anna, you work with the Social Security. I'm telling the truth. It's there, people. It's already there. In history, America at one time recalled all the gold, all gold. You couldn't own any gold at all. The government called it all in. I think they gave $16 an ounce for it, if I remember right. Maybe in $19 an ounce. After they got all the gold called in, then it was $36 an ounce, I believe, or 31, somewhere $32. $36 an ounce. The biggest robbery that ever took place in the American people. We're in what we call the Keynesian system of economics. How many of you know what the Keynesian system of economics is? That's where the governments can completely control the money. Completely control money. Every now and then, let's just look at America only, okay? Since we live in America, let's just look at America only. The whole big story about a lot of this stuff is God, guns, and gold. That's what people are hollering right now. Invest in God, in guns, and gold. We're going to go over here in Revelation, the 6th chapter, in just a minute now. And we're going to see what good guns and God and gold is going to do for you there. First of all, he's already marked out God in the 13th chapter. Who's going to be the only person being worshipped? The beast. So he's going to take their God away from them.
I was going to say that in Israel, the government cards, the first 3 digits are 666.
That's right. And in the Social Security card, one of the last numbers is what, Anna? 666. In the Social Security, it's under so and so, so and so, 666. What do you think about that? We know that other countries have this, but we've had it for a long, long time. Do you think America will recover? How foolish. We're going that way. Bill.
Yeah, but I might add that UCLA built a computer that can give everybody in the world a number. It's got 6 digits across, 6 digits down, and they claim that pattern they can give everybody.
It's already done.
Yeah.
It's already done. Everybody in the world's got a number, people.
Yeah.
I believe the mark is already there.
But don't you have the choice whether you take the mark or not?
That's right. Take the mark to have it imprinted. Now, some people say every time you buy something, you use your hand. Don't you? Every time you buy something, you sign your hand. That could be the mark. Okay, you're using it. And it's implanted. How many of you know your Social Security number? It's already in your hand, isn't it? All right. Just think about this for a while now. Just, here we are. Okay? Here we are. Revelation, the 6th chapter now, the economy at the end time.
6th chapter?
What? Revelation, the 6th chapter, the economy at the end time. Everybody says invest in God, guns and gold. I'm going to tell you something, guns aren't going to do you one bit of good. I like guns, I'm a gunsmith. But I'm going to tell you what, in the end times, nobody's going to have any guns. And nobody's going to have any gold. And nobody's going to have any silver. The Mormons, they have 7 years of food stored up. And they have a lot of gold and a lot of silver. You know what that's going to do? They're going to confiscate it anyway. They're going to go home to home. I believe when you join the service today, I think they have to sign a thing in there that they will go in and disarm the American people if necessary, if they're called upon. All right?
Brother Phillips, if they have food storage for 7 years, that means that they are planning to stay here for the tribulation period.
I would like to take up. Now, I believe in the pre-tribulation rapture. That's what I believe in. I believe that some people believe in the midweek rapture. Some people believe in the end of the week rapture. Okay? So those things are actually open. How much of the tribulation we see is according to different theories. I believe in the pre-tribulation rapture, and I talked about that last week, when all of the bad things would happen after the church is taken away and all of this, okay? Now let's go to the 6th chapter, the economy of the end time. All right, the economy of the end time. Now, I don't know where in the world these people are coming with these classes and all this stuff. What was fulfilled this week in prophecy? Brethren, we don't really know what's fulfilled. But I tell you what, what we have done, has been fulfilled in prophecy. Everybody is set up for the Antichrist, and we are set up for the Antichrist today, not tomorrow. Now, even Germany, we know that John Calvin, actually it started back with Augustine in the 300 and something AD. You know, he was one of the Catholic fathers. He invented a lot of those ungodly ideas and theology of the Catholic Church. And then John Calvin and Martin Luther believed in what we call replacement theology. Now, everybody is wanting to support Israel, which, you know what, I'm going to tell you something. Israel is God's nation. Israel is God's nation. But Israel is ungodly. I remember when I went over there to the Wailing Wall, and I said this last week. Well, Brother Madden and I, we went up to the Wailing Wall, and Brother Madden says, damnable heathens. They were kissing the scrolls. Without a God, he said. Damnable heathens without a God. Idolatry. That's what he was saying. Christians are donating money for them to build their temple and everything in the last days. I'm going to tell you something, people. That temple is the Antichrist temple. Israel won't see God again until they say, Baruch Hashem, blessed and holy is he that came in the name of the Lord. Even the synagogues, they got Baruch Hashem, blessed is the name of synagogues. I'm going to tell you something, we're in the church age. If they want to serve God, they better come to one of God's churches. Forget that stuff. Paul, writing in the book of Romans, I'm teaching on Wednesday night, he's lambasting the Jews in their Judaism. All right? The economy of the end time. No God, no guns, and no gold. That's the way it is, people. No God, no guns, no gold. It's not going to do you any good. When this all breaks loose, if God's people go into the tribulation period, you're going to have to take off flying, people. Run and live in the caves and the hills. Live off the land. That's about the only way. I don't believe we're going to do it. But that's what's going to happen. I believe those prophecies are to Israel. When Israel, in the middle of the week, when Israel realizes that the false Messiah is on the scene. 6 and 5, Brother David Ash. Revelation 6 and 5.
When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, Come and see. So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales.
The pair of scales, that pair of scales there, it means that he will set the price of everything. In history, America has been an absolute, it's been a war of the haves and the have-nots. Every Every story in history is between the rich and the poor, isn't it? Huh? How about in England? We had Robin Hood in England, didn't we? That was really, that really happened. F. Gene Autry's stories, Roy Rogers' stories, Randolph Scott, John Wayne stories. What are all these stories about? The rich people trying to grab the poor people by the throat and bleeding every bit of money out of them and putting them in poverty. Tennessee Ernie Ford, 16 tons, another day older, or 16 tons of coal, and another day older, and deeper in debt.
Another day older.
That's right.
And deeper in debt.
After the Civil War, people were devastated with the big shots. Jesse James, the Youngers, they went out and they robbed banks. Jesse James was a Baptist deacon. Frank James was a preacher. Their father was a missionary Baptist missionary. He founded 5 churches. They went from church to church, fighting the banks and the railroads. Those people were bad. The banks and the railroad were rats.
Carpetbaggers.
Yeah.
Rats. Here in California, they came in here. The United States government gave them so many miles of land for putting in a railroad. They came out in areas like the Central Valley here in California, and they told people back east, farmers back here, come out here and you can get free land, or land for $1 an acre. They'd get them on there. The people came here. This is historical fact, people. They got in here and they had so many miles of right-of-way on the deal. They would build their farms. The railroads would not give them the deed to the property, and then they would sell their improved farms after they had broke the land, cut the trees down, built homes, and they would steal it from them. This is the history of the world, people. That's what's going on in America. Then we had the gay 90s, didn't we? Finally, the people shook off some of that, and some people started making enough money to where they could even have a house. That's the whole American dream, isn't it? Own a home. Own a home, get a job, and what else? Retire. That's the story. That's the story. Let's go on now. The gay 90s. What happened after the gay 90s? Why did Teddy Roosevelt, what did he do? What did Teddy Roosevelt do when he came on the scene? He was a very rich man. He was a Republican. He was a very rich man. He got in there, and big business, they were fighting. Big business, the Chevron, the Standard, Carnegie, all of these people had a tremendous amount of wealth in America. At that time, they were struggling, and many people, the big steel companies, all of these. Of course, you got the banks, you got the railroads, you got the oil companies now. Tremendously. They moved masses of wealth. They were taking all the wealth from people. They were foreclosing on all the farms. They owned all the farms. Teddy Roosevelt read a little book, a little socialist book. It was called The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. He lambasted Upton Sinclair in the news and stuff, and he said, this is a socialist communist, this guy is. And what Upton Sinclair did, he was talking about how that they were using people in the big cities in Chicago and everything. He really literally picked out the meat industry, the butchers and the stockyards there. And you know what? Teddy Roosevelt went and checked out all of his information that he had, and he found out the guy's true. It's real. It's happening. Teddy Roosevelt instituted the Food and Drug Administration. He got behind the unions. He had the Department of Agriculture. Everything that Upton Sinclair called for to reform America, he started doing it quietly. And then Franklin Roosevelt came on the scene. And all Franklin Roosevelt did was push his programs. When Teddy Roosevelt got out of office, he had another man that was supposed to take up and continue his programs, and he didn't. So that's when he had the Boom Loose deal. This is just a history now. We're talking about a history lesson. Nobody's going to argue with this. This is history. You can tell whatever you want to, but this is history. He got up and he was speaking, and he got shot. And he spoke for, I think it was 55 minutes after he was shot. He kept on preaching his reform and trying to bring people back. He wanted to help the American people because big business was strangling them to death. Right from that period of time on till about the 1980s, America was the greatest of all. Was it or not? And then what happened? Big business started grabbing a hold again. And then we had the absolute, we have a period of time there where everybody is getting homes, they're buying all these fancy cars and everything else. We had the roaring 20s, we had the gay 90s, we have the roaring 20s and the crash. You know, in 100 years, America has broke the world twice, economically. Broke the world twice.
I'm fixing to do it again.
Well, they have done it. The America broke the world because of greed, because America requires so much. We had the gay 90s, we have the roaring 20s, and we had the crash. And now we have another crash. We're in the midst of it. But what is it? Now, we had a real good Republican president in Teddy Roosevelt, and who was the next one that tried to help the American people, and he got thrown out? Huh? Nixon. He put a capital, he capped all the, he went in and checked out the food industry, he checked out the oil industry, he found out they were scamming the people. So he started setting prices. And what happened to him? He's not according to the system. Not according to the system. Not according to the system. Let's go back here now and read a little bit more of this. I had a pair of scales in his hand. He set everything. This new man is going to set everything. And I heard, as it were, a voice in the center of the four living beings saying, a what? A quart of wheat for a what?
Denarius.
A denarius. Is it getting a little warm in here? Yep. I'm going to turn this thing down. When I start getting warm up there, I know it's warm in the rest of the room because I don't have any heater. Wheat. Wheat. A quart of wheat for a denarius. What is a denarius?
1 day wages.
1 day's wages. In 1900 and in the late 1800s, every person in a family, from the time they were 5 years old on, had to work just to feed the family. That's what it was, people. Every person. Out here, when they came out here to California, the Okies, my family were different Okies. They were Indian Okies. We couldn't own anything back there in Oklahoma. So they came out here to be mistaken for Okies. And maybe what they had out here, they could keep it. Everybody in the family, from babies on, if they could walk and pull a potato sack or a cotton sack, they were picking cotton. Just to feed the family. Just to feed the family. It's going to be this in the last days. Now, where are we today? We have if anybody's going to own a home or even rent a home, sometimes it's multi-families living in one home. Multi-family housing like it was back then. Same thing. Same thing it was back then. Multi-family home. And everybody, it's not just Daddy working now. You know, back from about 1940 all the way up into the 1980s, Daddy could make a living and support the family. But now, all of a sudden, it turned back around like it was in 1900. Mama has to work, Daddy has to work, and now let's put the kids to work again. Because that's what it's going to be. If you can't work, you'll die. Euthanasia has been practiced in this country for about 20 years. They holler about it, morally, about people being shot. But what is euthanasia? Not giving them medical treatment? People don't have medical treatment? Don't have any medical treatment. A quart of wheat for a day's wages. And 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages. all of this is it's going to do one thing. It's going to sustain your life. That's all. And what else does it say here? And do not harm the oil and wine. What does that mean? Do not harm the oil and wine. Brother Rex, you remember what that means?
Something about the rich can afford it and nobody else can.
That's right. In the mid-1800s, we had the migration of wealth into the very few hands of people. In the in the 1890s, we had the same thing. In the early 1900s, we had a migration of wealth, and now we had a migration of wealth. You know, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'll vote Democrat and I'll vote Republican now and then. But, boy, there aren't very many honest politicians, are there? Most of the time, almost every judge, I say, no, 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 no. Kick them all out. Get rid of all of them. Start over. The last election, they were talking about Palin and John McCain and Barack Obama. And there was one guy that really, for the last 30 or 40 years, this guy is really for the American people. He's a Republican, but he isn't a Republican. What was his name? Ron Paul. I mean, there was places that were tremendously voting for him, and he's going to win the election. Did they even count his votes? He wasn't part of the system, people. He wasn't part of the system. Not at all. He wasn't part of the system. Nobody's going to run that's not part of the system. Part of the system. Oil and wine you can have. That's a luxury. You're not going to get any oil and wine. You're not going to have that. That's going to be for the elite. Now let's go over to the 17th chapter of Revelation. Revelation chapter 17. Revelation chapter 17. Now we're going to find out who's in control. No God, no guns, and no gold. They don't have anything. Nobody's going to have anything. Everything's going to be confiscated. It's going to be in the hands of only a few people in the world. And here they are being described right here. This is sick, people. This is scary, isn't it? We already know you can't get a job without a Social Security number. Can't get a driver's license. You can't get a hunting license. Can't get a fishing license.
Can't get unemployment.
Can't get unemployment.
Can't get married.
Can't get married. Can't get buried. You can't get married. You can't get buried. You can't get a job. You can't have a banking account. You can't go to the doctor. Already, that could very well ease. And every nation in the world's got a citizen number. We all have them. Period. Okay? They're there. It's in place. We don't have to look for it coming. The politics today is sucker punching everybody. Just sucker, bam, sucker, bam. Telling you you'll get, if we can turn this thing around. I'm going to tell you something. It is irretrievable. Why? Like Hitler in World War II. Hitler was anti-Semitic. Why, Luther, for hundreds of years, he had called for the concentration of all Jews and the destruction of all Jews. All Hitler did was what? Hitler was a religious man. He was also into the occult. But he was religious, superstitious and religious. All he did was call for is what those religious leaders had been calling for forever. And Augustine and what we call Constantine the Great, Saint Constantine, you know, the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. I think it's the unholy Roman Empire. How did they get everything into total control? You know, the Catholic Church was an absolute type of the end time. The Catholic Church was an absolute type of the end time book of Revelation and the great harlot in Revelation, the 17th chapter. Revelation 17. The Catholic Church said, well, we're going to have to start baptizing babies. Since the church and the state are one, the best thing we can do is to make babies and demand them to have a baptism so they're a member of the church and the state, and you only have 9 or 10 days or 15 days to do it, otherwise you're going to be fined. When your children are born today, in America, they have to have a what? Social Security number. The Catholic Church invented license for marrying. Now today, for Baptists, for 1900 years stood against a legalized marriage. Did you know that? There wasn't they would have a minister perform a marriage ceremony, and they would write it in a Bible, and that's all of it. Primitive Baptists today, which go back to that period of time, if you go out and have a minister marry you with a marriage license in a primitive church, they will exclude you. In a primitive Baptist church, they will exclude you for marrying yourself to the harlot of Revelation. But way back yonder, now that's one of the things that the Baptists wouldn't do. They wouldn't get a marriage license. They would not be married according to the state. You couldn't be married, and then you couldn't be buried. You couldn't get a job. And when you got a job, your income was taxed. Your income was taxed, and you paid your tithe to the state church. If you're in Germany today and you're a member of the Lutheran Church, what happens? Brother Dave, you know something about that? If you're in Germany today and you are a member of the Lutheran Church in Germany, they will tax right out of your payroll. You will pay 10% to the church.
Mormon does basically
In America, England, in America, in the early part of America, every colony in America was a state church. They didn't know any different, except for Rhode Island, which was founded by Dr. John Clark. And of course, you'd always have the other guy there. I can't even think of his name. Roger something. I can't even think of his name now. Roger Williams. Anyway, they have him founding the First Baptist Church in America. It was a Baptist colony where anybody could believe and practice any kind of religion. Why, when America was started as a nation, there wasn't freedom of religion. Did you know that? There was no freedom of religion in America until they wrote the Bill of Rights.
Well, didn't guy's name John? He went over petitioning, and they became
John Clark.
the
He was 17 years, I believe it was, petitioning the King of England to let them have a free colony, a religious free colony in America. None of the others worked. They said, let's just see if it works.
Okay.
By the way, that's when America had the Bill of Rights, then that's where we have all of the cults when they all started. That's when your Seventh-day Adventist cult, your Jehovah's Witnesses, and all those cults, your Mary Baker Eddy, your science and health and all this kind of stuff, that's when it all started. There wasn't any place else. Revelation, the 17th chapter. Let's read here. Brother Dr. John, Revelation 17:1.
Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot, who sits on many waters.
All right. Who is the harlot?
Satan.
The harlot is the state church. It's the bride of the Antichrist. That's who the harlot is. She's the bride of the Antichrist. Okay? The bride of the Antichrist. Now, back in church history, I've gone through the trail of blood where we see the history, the evolution of Catholicism and all of that. Why, the Catholic Church, they built the Vatican over there. strangling and bleeding money from the people. All of that gold and everything else, they took those people money. They invented purgatory. They invented indulgences, all of these things. And it was a state-church religion. The church and the state were married in one. All
Given penance to get your sins forgiven.
yeah, well, that's indulgences. Now, that's a church. You
It's
could buy. And that's when they started having all of these little, what we call icons, and little pieces of the cross, pieces of Jesus' diaper. You had one of these, boy, your sins were forgiven. Miracle. All of this stuff. Well, Brother John.
On the many waters.
Okay, the many waters, that's all the people. That's the people. The harlot, the state church, is over all of these people. Now, in the last days, the temple of the Antichrist, the one that Israel's going to build over there in Jerusalem, according to, you can read that thing, it's right there on the boards. I've been trying to get somebody to read it. It's not going to be just for the Jews. It's going to be for the Muslims. It's going to be a one-world religion. It's going to be for the Christians. They can come and worship there. If you're a Muslim, if you're a Christian, if you're a Jew, a Buddhist, or whatever it is, you just come in, you're welcome to come here and worship. All the religions are going to be amalgamated. This is what we call the epitome of ecumenism. Ecumenical movement. That's the epitome of it. And here she is. Here she is in your Bible. Tolerance. All right?
So if you believe as a Baptist, you're going to have to switch over to a Catholic at the end time?
Oh, they're going to this is going to be, all the churches will be amalgamated together into all this Christian, Judaistic, Buddhist movements. They're all politically. You know, when I started seeing people signed up to vote in churches, it scared the daylights out of me. Because Baptists never would do that. For 2,000 years they didn't do it. But in the last days, the state and the church are going to become one, and the church and the state are going to be very political. I try to stay out of politics. I'll say this. I used to teach political science, you know. I know a little bit about it. But I try to stay out of it because nobody's going to agree. But I can tell you one thing. The harlot of Revelation is going to be an ecumenical, political state church. All right, Dr. John. Number 2.
Okay, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made...
Hold on right there. What kind of fornication?
Spiritual fornication.
What?
Spiritual.
Tell that real loud now.
Spiritual.
Spiritual fornication. Spiritual fornication. You can only worship one God if you worship anything else. If you worship anything else. I have never participated in the national days of prayer or anything like that. How can I go down there and pray with these people when they're not even praying to the same God that I'm praying? I'll stay at home and pray. I pray for our leaders. Why, the book of Romans tells us we're supposed to pray for the leaders because they're ordained of God. Was Hitler ordained of God? Absolutely he was. God allowed him to come on the scene. Darius the Mede, Nebuchadnezzar, Cyrus, were these people ordained of God? Was even the Catholic Church, that God allowed that harlot to come on the scene a long time ago? He allowed it. The Catholic Church ruled almost all the world. In South America today, you can't even get a marriage down there. If you go down there as American missionary, it's Jim Phillips and woman. It's not wife. If you're not married by the Catholic Church down there, you're not married. And your children are illegitimate, as far as they're concerned, because they're still in control. All right, sister, who was reading that?
I was.
Okay, Dr. John.
Let's see. And the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
All right, drunk with the wine of her. They are absolutely in euphoria. One of the things that I believe is going to be part of this end time, ecumenical movement is the charismata, the charismatic movement.
How are they going to convince the
What?
Muslims?
Oh, the Muslims speak in tongues.
Yeah, but how are they going? How are they going to get them to mix with the infidels?
The infidels. Well, and you know what? There's going to be some miracle. There's going to be some miracle that's going to. Well, now I tell you what. I'm not so sure the Muslims ever will totally do it. There will be. There's a lot of different denominations of Muslims, people. Just because somebody's a Muslim, it doesn't mean it's the Muslims over there we're fighting with right now. There's a lot of Muslims that are pacifist. All right, but there's going to be, and that's probably the ones that's going to line up. Because in the end time, when this man stands up here in the middle of the week, who's going to be against him? Who's going to be against the Antichrist over there? Come on. The Muslims. There's some of them going to fight. Then China is going to fight against him. Russia. And America will be in his pocket. The way it is. You know what? You can help who you make friends with, but when you're born with somebody, you're just there, aren't you? Family, I mean, you're just family, but you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. I don't know where I'd rather be than here in the world. You know, in all reality. Let's go on and look. Drunk with her the wine of her immorality. And number 3, David Fracture.
And he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast.
A red beast. A woman sitting on a red beast.
Full of blasphemous names, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
We talked about the 7 heads and the 10 horns. These are governments, basically, and leaders. All right? 7 heads and 10 horns.
7 heads and 10 horns. Is some of them beasts not going to have but 1 head and 1 horn?
You know what's going to happen here? There's going to be some leaders that are over different countries. More than one country. 7 heads and 10 horns. Horns are 7 heads and 10 horns. The horns are it comes from the word carrot in Hebrew. It means a horn or it's a head, a powerful one. There's going to be a few powerful people running all in the world. You know, and this is another thing. We're talking about economics today just a little bit. Every depression in the world, every war has been planned ahead of time for you to war. Well, if you study political science, a little bit Western civilization, you can go to realize why even the History Channel had on here a few months ago, they had the family over in Europe. What's the name of American? The family.
What part of Europe?
Oh, they're Jews, is what they are. They starts with an R.
Rothschild?
Rothschilds. How the Rothschilds had instrumentation in every war that's been fought in the modern world. Every war that has been fought in the modern world has been planned. Every time a nation went into depression, it was planned. And if you look at it, it's planned by the princes to move masses of wealth into their corner. We went into Mr. Bush was in office when we went into our depression. All right? And he bailed out the banks because the banks went belly up, didn't they? But who got the money, the bailout? Did it go to the people that lost the money in the bank? Did it go to the people that lost money? It went to who? The CEOs that engineered it.
And
They're the ones that caused it. And they got all of the bailout money, and you're paying for that for the next 50 years. Totally. We have now, they're trying to stop the CEOs from getting the money and it go back into the system. All right? But boy, they'll kill anybody that gets in there trying to do it, they will kill them. Every war, every economy, every depression has been engineered to move the mass of wealth into the very hands of the elite. Yale and Princeton and Harvard are for the elites. Every now and then a poor man gets in there. But those are for educating the elite so they can rule the world. I preached a sermon about 20, 30, 40 years ago. It said 10 men that rule the world from their graves. Why, the system is there. The Rothschild system is there. All of these systems have always been there. It's there. It's been for hundreds of years. It's been planned. Where's it going? Right here in Revelation tells you about it. What do? Well, we live here. Do the best you can. Pray that you can withstand all of this. We know that the mass of wealth is still being moved. They won't finish until all the people grow. All right, let's go on a little further. Where are you there, David? The red beast?
Okay, I'm on 4 now.
Uh-huh.
And the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones.
All right,
and
this
pearls.
state church, this ruler, is adorned with all the richest things. Now remember, the common man won't even have olive oil. He won't have wine. He won't have soda pop or Dr. Pepper to drink at his meal. He's going to have water, and he's going to have the base food of life. He's going to have Wheaties and barley. That's it. The base. That's all you're going to have now. That's it. Go on, David.
In pearls, having in her hand a cup full of abominations and of the unclean things of her immorality. And upon her forehead a name was written, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth.
All right. Now, this woman, back in the history of Catholicism, them poor Baptists back there thought they were in the middle of the tribulation period, people. Just think about it for a while. Just think about it. Being in the Dark Ages, what brought on the Dark Ages? The Catholic Church brought on the Dark Ages. Why, the Bible, when God gave the Bible in the New Testament, it was in the language of the whole world, Koine Greek. Koine Greek meant common, universal language, a Greek language. Everybody spoke in Greek. They had that movie, The Passion, and they made a great error in that movie. Everything was in Aramaic. It should have been in Greek, because they spoke Greek, not Aramaic. When Jesus quoted Aramaic, or when he spoke Aramaic, it quotes it into Greek. Talitha kumei, may you rise, whatever. In the Greek, even what Luke quotes on the cross and what Matthew quotes on the cross are in two different languages. One of them is in Aramaic and the other one's in Hebrew. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, that's Hebrew. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? That's what it says in Psalm 22 and verse 1. Remember when we studied Psalms here a while back? Basically, what he meant, he quoted the whole psalm there. I am the dying Messiah. I am the suffering Messiah on the cross of Calvary. Israel should have recognized that, but they wouldn't. And Jesus said something to those people back then when they looked over to Jerusalem. He said, oh, Jerusalem, how many times that I would have clucked for you like a mama hen does for her baby. But what? You wished not to come. He said, you have eyes, but what? But you do not see. You have ears, but you do not hear. And here we are today. We have eyes, but we do not see. We have ears, but we do not hear. And we got propaganda going out over the airwaves. There is not a single solitary station out there that's going to tell you what's going on. If you want to listen to what's going on, you better go listen to it in Japanese. Or something else, because you're sure not going to get the truth here. It's not going to happen. They're part of the system, people. They're part of the system. The mother of harlots. Abominations are. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the witnesses of Jesus. When I saw, I wondered greatly. Now, there are going to be some people saved during this period of time right here. You know that? There are going to be some Christians here. There's going to be some. but they're going to die. I hope that the rapture takes place beforehand. I told you there's a mid-tribulation rapture and a post-tribulation rapture. What we call pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib rapture. I believe in pre-trib rapture. But I also know one thing. I sure know history. I taught Western civilization, economics, and political science when I was in college. I know what happened in the world. I read my Bible. And I don't care what anybody's saying in the world today. I know where it's going. And it's not going to get better. It's not going to get better. Why? It's programmed to go exactly where it is. Do you think this isn't going to happen? Do you believe the Bible? You believe it? I believe it. I believe the Bible above everything. Anybody gets up and quotes the Bible or whatever, I believe the Bible first. And I believe the Bible so much that I studied it in Greek and Hebrew. Because I want to find out what it says without any middleman. If some man gets up and makes a speech in America, instantly, right after it happens, they tell you what he said, like you can't understand what he said. Like you don't have enough sense to understand what he said. They're going to tell you. That's what we call the commentators. They tell you what he says. If I listen to somebody speak, I go and listen to the C-SPAN, and I listen to what they're saying in person live. And I'll know what they say. Probably lying anyway. They're all part of the system. All right? The witnesses. And I wandered greatly. I was struck out of my senses. And the angel said to me, why do you... That word there is struck out of your... Have you ever been amazed that it just absolutely... You were absolutely speechless and thoughtless? You couldn't believe what you were seeing? You couldn't hear what you were seeing? And we see that today. As I taught church history all these years, I taught about the Catholic Church, and I taught about the evolution of Catholicism and the evolution of the Baptist Church. Boy, that's what scares me. The evolution of the Baptist Church. At one time, Baptists were Baptists. At one time, every missionary Baptist was a Southern Baptist. Every Southern Baptist was a missionary Baptist. They all believed the same. You can go from one church to the other and you can hear the same gospel preached to them. The same words, the same doctrines. Whew. Just because somebody says they're Baptist, they don't mean nothing. 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 The beast carries her. Who's the beast? This mystery woman. I said, why do you wonder? I shall tell you the mystery. What's the word mystery there? What is the word in Greek? Do any of you remember, Brother David?
Mysterion.
Mysterion. That's a secret. A secret.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Secrets. Mystery, the word secret. There's mystery religions, isn't there? Or there's secret societies. All of it, this is mysteries. Secret societies. The mystery of the woman. Now, by the way, anytime you hear a woman preaching, you've got problems.
Amen.
Amen.
Right off the bat. Why, Sister Andino?
Because she doesn't have the right to.
She's not ordained to do that.
The Bible says.
The Bible says that. Now, do you believe the Bible?
Amen.
First of all, when she stands up and starts preaching, you already got a problem. Right there. So, from the very beginning. Now, this woman, this system. Now, remember, this is the bride of who? The bride of the Antichrist. And remember what I said? No guns, no gold, and no God. People aren't going to have those choices. Not going to have anything. Your money's not going to be... Your silver won't buy you anything. Your gold won't buy you anything. Nothing. The mystery of the woman, the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. And the beast that I saw was and is not. He was, but he is not. The Universal Holy Roman Empire was very powerful. When Calvin came on the scene, and John Calvin came on the scene, and Martin Luther came on the scene, They were protesting of the atrocities in the Catholic Church. What were they? What was John Calvin? What was his occupation? Anybody know? What was his occupation? He had 2 strikes against him.
Lawyer.
He was a lawyer for one. Right off the bat. Lot was a lawyer. Lot. Lot. Oh, Lot. This is the way you spell Lot's name in Hebrew, basically. That's what it, Lot. Kind of rhymes with louse. All right. Lot was a lawyer and a judge. A lawyer and a judge. All right. What else was Martin Luther? He was a priest in the Catholic Church. He was a lawyer and a priest. He was trained in law and he's priest. Now, how about Martin Luther? What was Martin Luther's occupations?
He was a priest also, wasn't he?
He was a Catholic priest and he was a lawyer.
And Calvin was a priest also?
That's right. Calvin was, matter of fact, John Calvin drew his salary as a priest for a long time after he started his, what they call Protestant Revolution. So did Martin Calvin. Martin Calvin, they tried to kill him. The Catholic Church, if they hadn't been busy fighting other wars, they'd have killed him. They'd really gone after him a lot more. And there's where we have the state church in Germany as the Lutheran Church. And he is the one that called for the destruction of the Jewish people because he read the same Augustine's letter, the City of God. And of course, we always talk about there's only one person that's ever going to legislate righteousness and morality. God did in the nation of Israel. And the Lord will right here. In history, why doesn't communism work? American Indians lived with it for thousands of years. It worked for them. But why doesn't communism work as a mass in the Japhetic nations?
Some people work, some people won't.
No.
Greed.
Not it. What?
Greed.
Greed. Greed. The leaders of it. There's a difference between them leaders. American Indian leaders were elected for that day. You were a leader as long as you led right. The American government, when they came over here and started trying to say, how many of you ever heard of an Indian princess? Oh, have you ever heard of Indian princess? Ain't no such thing. No such thing. You know what Indian princesses were ordained by England and America? A princess was a king's daughter. Well, there weren't any kings among the Indians, I can guarantee you that much right now. And you were only a leader as you led. And it worked among those people. They were socialists and they lived in a socialist democracy. That's what all the Indian tribes were. And it worked for them for thousands of years. But among the Japhethites, it has never worked in history because the wrong people get to be the leaders. It's not going to work.
It worked for the Indians because they stayed in small bands, family-sized bands.
Well, they're tribes.
Yeah.
Tribes. But they went from coast to coast. But it wasn't ruled by greed. They only lived off of the land. They didn't what you call stockpile wealth. Where you stockpile wealth, there's where you have problems. Jesus said, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than what?
A rich man.
Rich man to get to heaven. Now that is a true statement. It's true. It was true when Jesus spoke it, and it's true today.
But Jim, wasn't it Calvin and Luther that took the Septuagint out of the Bible? Being lawyers, wasn't it that too?
No.
Am I wrong?
No, the ones that took the Septuagint, by the way, is the Septuagint was the whole Old Testament.
Yeah.
The Apocrypha,
The
King
Apocrypha.
James put it in, the Catholic Church still has it in, the Church of England had the Apocrypha in, as far as I know, they still have it there.
Okay. Who took it out of the King James Bible?
Basically the modern evangelical preachers.
Oh, I thought it was Calvin.
Modern, it came away, Brother Rex.
I read somewhere quite a while ago that Martin Luther he was a Catholic till he died. Is that true?
Well, he was. He never wanted to start a new church. He wanted to reform Catholicism. He believed in Catholicism. He believed in it. but he believed in salvation by grace. One thing about Martin Luther did have an experience of grace. John Calvin, I never found anywhere where he had an experience of grace. He just thought he was the elect. There was a time when Martin Luther really repented and cried and called upon the Lord to save him on Jesus' merits. You're not going to find that in John Calvin. And boy, I mean, that's going to blister a whole lot of people out there in the world. But that's a fact. That's a historical fact. Well, thank you for your attention. I didn't mean to scare you plumb to death today and make you anti-Americans out of you at all. But I want you to know where you are.
I got one other question you're going to have to answer, Jim.
Yeah?
What is this I'm hearing, and I've been trying to pay attention on the news? How can a pope become a saint? I mean, that's got me going.
A pope becomes a saint because the Catholic Church canonizes him. And what it means when they become a saint, they were so good that they did so many good deeds that they got into heaven and they got some left over. Well, I don't believe that. Why, it's all heresy anyway. It's all what we call spiritual fornication.
I told Linda the other night that they were going to make a saint out of Pope Phillips. She said, well, he'd be up with us anymore.
If they were saints, we're saints. We're not of earth. When we're born again, we become saints.
So he's one, I understand, he's one something away from being a saint.
Which pope is it?
The one that's there now.
Oh, you mean the one right now?
Yeah, he's one.
No, the one that just
Oh, the one passed on? You mean the Polish pope?
The Polish pope.
The Polish pope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they're almost going to canonize him.
He's one miracle or one something away from being a saint, and I'm wondering.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, if he gets to heaven at all, it'll be a miracle. By salvation, by grace. That's it. I know some of the Catholic priests even say that they know Jesus. I had one woman one time, a Baptist, that her husband was a Baptist preacher, and she was going to this Catholic church. And I said, why in the world? You're a Baptist. What are you going to do? What is Catholicism? Well, our priest is saved. He knows the Lord. Then why is he still there? Why is he still there? Why didn't he become a Baptist? Why didn't he get baptized the right way? After your salvation, not before. You're not baptized to get saved, you're baptized because you're saved. Well, Brother David, thank you for your attention today. Probably set the whole world on its ear.
He's out on the internet.